Look at all this nature. There's just so much nature. I mean, if you look around, like there's grass, and then there's grass, and look over there, there's more grass. Right, so we covered the history of golf. Now it's time to tackle the environmental side of this issue. And I promise this video isn't just like, water usage bad. There's some nuance here. Also some scandal, and like so much ecology. Before I start, these videos do take literal weeks of research. I can't just like be cute and post a new one every week. So please subscribe and hit the bell so that you know when I drop the next video, which should be about racism and sexism in golf. Yeah, they don't exist. It's actually like a super inclusive sport. Zero problems there. Also, as always, I'm putting a link to a Google Doc of all my citations down below because we stand citations. I also spoke with the superintendents of about 10 environmentally friendly golf courses for this video, so a lot of this is coming from my conversations with them. Let us begin. I often hear golfers say that golfing is an opportunity to be out in nature. Let me clear this up right off the bat. Golf courses are not natural. They are nature-themed amusement parks. No one has ever been walking through the woods and stumbled upon a naturally occurring golf course. I mean, like, maybe in like 17th century Scotland. Of course, whether or not golfers are in nature kind of depends on how you define nature. Bear with me for a minute while I get philosophical. Some people will tell you nature doesn't exist anymore because you can find microplastics on every square inch of the earth. Other people will tell you that everything is nature because humans are nature and we're all just atoms in this jolly old cosmic party of a universe.
It's all connected.
Right.
To all the other people that are around you and all the people that you've interacted with and all the places you've been and the things you've seen and all the people that are constantly...
But it doesn't really matter, does it? Because in the time I spent discussing it, we've already lost an acre of tropical rainforest. They distract you with their philosophy. Golf courses are built, full stop. The average golf course is about as natural as a water park, and they usually use more water. Early golf courses were actually characterized by their domination over nature. The early 20th century saw a general shift from pre-modern folk games that used pre-existing spaces to modern sport with formal, managed terrain. The dominion over nature was a necessary part of human exceptionalism and pushed humans away from their primitive past. From the early 20th century perspective, humans were exceptional in their intelligence and entitled to land that they could shape at their own will. Asterisks, if those humans were white men. White men from the Enlightenment saw Mother Nature as a woman to be tamed and people who lived closer to nature as primitive savages. And these white men believed that their ability to shape nature to suit their desires demonstrated their superiority. So they were wrong. Golf courses certainly aren't the first instance we see of human domination over nature, but they are like a perfect example of it. It's nature, but clean, with perfect trimmed grass, water features wherever you put them, underage girls serving you alcohol. They took nature and molded it into a board game so big that they have to drive across it. Okay, that's as philosophical as I'm gonna get. Now I'm going back to the science where I feel comfy. A golf course exists in two states. It's either being built or it's being maintained. The construction of a golf course is objectively the most damaging to nearby environments. Obviously, there's lots of varying factors like where the golf course is located and what sorts of habitats it's replacing. In general, construction consists of clearing natural vegetation, deforestation, changing the local topography and hydrology, and installing lots of irrigation. Obviously, deforestation is not good. Essentially, across the board, pretty bad. We need trees for oxygen and habitats or whatever. I assume everyone watching this doesn't really need me to explain that. You guys are smart, we're gonna move on. Construction generally causes lots of erosion. Erosion is when soil and rock and dissolved minerals are removed and then transported to a new location. This usually means more sediment loads run off into nearby bodies of water. Dirty streams may not sound that threatening, but it actually is a pretty severe problem. Put simply, streams have aquatic plant life, and those plants need light to photosynthesize. And if that light is blocked by a dirty stream, you get less plants, which means less fish food, which means you've got an unhealthy stream. Construction can have worse consequences under poor management. For instance, there was the construction of the Keopuka Lands golf course in Hawaii, which carried tons of dirt right into the ocean and then deposited it on an already fragile coral reef. Because of course it did. The courses build hills and water features, and these alterations to local landscape and waterways change the ways that water runs off into streams and lakes. Changes aren't always bad, but for already established ecosystems, they can have a really hard time adapting. The final step of construction is establishing the grass. Until that's done, the soil is relatively unstable and the risk of erosion is really high. All the dust from construction can have really harmful effects on local plant life. It's like, you know how if you go hiking or you work outside and you get dust on your face and it dries you out? It's nothing like that. You're not a plant. You don't photosynthesize. You don't have chlorophyll. You wouldn't get it. That's I already hear the critics. But that's all development. It's my critic impression. First of all, duh, that doesn't make it better. Second of all, golf courses are generally built in previously undeveloped areas, which means there's essentially more natural habitat for them to damage. Also, golf courses are really big. For example, you know the Mall of America, like the ostentatious capitalist hellscape? It's on about 80 acres of land, 125 if we include IKEA and all the parking lots. The average golf course is 150 to 200 acres, which is significantly bigger than the biggest mall in the country, and there's 16,000 of them. I'm just giving you a reference for scale. Comparing the construction of golf courses and malls is comparing apples to oranges. If the apples were poisonous and the oranges were explosive and all the fruit made you sad. Moving on. The most common argument you hear against golf courses is usually their water usage, and it's true. Golf courses use an egregious amount of water, especially in drought states. Golf courses in the southwest United States have been found to use up to 5 times as much water as courses in the northeast. And in Thailand, a single golf course uses as much water as 60,000 rural villagers. In total, golf courses in the US use over 2 billion gallons of water a day. Could that water go to a million other better causes? Obviously, but I also think most people understand that problem, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. What I do want to talk about is, why are golf courses so green? And not just like green, like they're green.
I'm not gonna stop, that's who I am. I'll give it all I got, that is.
They look like a green Crayola crayon threw up on an empty field. Golf courses weren't always steroid green. The phenomenon really happened in like the 1960s when television started airing full golf tournaments like the Masters tournament at Augusta National. Side note, Masters, really? You might want to change the name, bud. Maybe I'm a liberal snowflake overcome by white guilt, but you sound kinda clanny. For the record, I am a liberal snowflake overcome by white guilt. Fight me. I'm kidding, I can't fight. Unless it's a spoken word poetry battle, then I'm there. Everyone saw Augusta National's uber green grass that they spend all year maintaining for a 4-day-long tournament and thought, that's what a healthy golf course looks like. I shall do the same thing to my grass. And this created what scientists call the Augusta National syndrome, where every golf course needs violently green grass. So, how does one get grass that green? Essential oils. I'm kidding, it's a thick, thick fog of agrochemicals. Agrochemicals are mainly fertilizers and pesticides, and they're especially necessary when you're trying to keep non-native grasses happy on a golf course. A lot of people freak out over pesticides because some are known carcinogens, aka cancer-causing. There is some research into golf course pesticide application and certain illnesses, also a documentary about it. I'm not going to go into it because I don't know anything about human health, and I think it would be irresponsible of me to imply that I do, so that's all I'm going to say about that. Pesticide usage was really bad from the 60s to the 90s. Greenskeepers are thankfully a bit more cautious today. In 1993, they were using a cocktail of 21 different herbicides, 20 fungicides, and 8 insecticides. I know. Yum. A typical golf course would apply 18 pounds of pesticides per acre each year, which is 7 times the amount used on farmland. A 1993 Golf Magazine article cautioned players to clean their shoes immediately after playing, to take a shower, and not to put the tees in their mouth. So if you're ever on a golf course, don't lick the grass. The problem with pesticides is that they generally don't just affect the target pest. 98% of insecticides and 95% of herbicides reach a destination other than their target species. They either run off into water sources or they're carried by wind into other habitats. They can also seep into the soil where they damage microorganisms and degrade the soil quality. Saying pesticides bad is both false and oversimplistic. Unless you want world hunger rates to steeply incline, pesticides are pretty necessary. The problem with pesticides is their overapplication. The same goes for fertilizers. Fertilizers allow us to add nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium to soil topsoil. Think of them like plant steroids that make the plants grow bigger and faster. But when it's over-applied, it tends to run off into water sources. All the algae and plankton and aquatic plant life bloom like crazy because now they're on steroids. And when they die, they decompose, a process which consumes oxygen and produces carbon dioxide and methane. The water becomes hypoxic, aka lacking oxygen. This is called eutrophication, and that's how we get massive ocean dead zones. Like pesticides, fertilizers aren't bad, assuming you're pro eating food. But over-application and unnecessary application are extremely very not good. And golf courses, which often use more agrochemicals per acre than agriculture, are the definition of unnecessary and excessive. Remember, they're just applying these chemicals to match a golf aesthetic, not to produce any food. There's also the fact that golfers lose like most of their golf balls. I found one study that collected over 50,000 golf balls over a 2-year period off the coast of California associated with 7 courses. I love this study, but sometimes you just want to ask the researchers, like, are you okay? You dove for 50,000 golf balls. Do you want to talk about that? The golf balls degrade and release microplastics into the environment and harm marine life. Why do so many of these golf balls end up in the water, you ask? Because courses are set up that way to be difficult. If you miss, the ball goes into the ocean, because remember, nature is your board game king. The study actually does the math out and calculates that Pebble Beach Golf Course alone has released between 1 and 5 million golf balls into the coastal waters since it opened. I didn't expect to find ocean golf ball research, but now I can't stop thinking about it. What if the fish find the golf balls and then they use their fins to play underwater soccer with them, and they go fish school against fish school and they battle, and it doesn't matter. Golf courses have some redeeming qualities though, not enough to actually redeem them, but they deserve acknowledgement. Credit where credit is due. I am fair and just, even though the comments will say otherwise. I spoke to several golf courses that use minimal chemicals and keep a lot of their land naturalized, which is great. In general, grass can protect topsoil and prevent erosion. Also, golf courses can capture and cleanse stormwater runoff in urban areas. Large green spaces generally reduce air and noise pollution and lower urban temperatures. And those are benefits that exist even when those green spaces are privatized for a select few rich people. Also, just because something is man-made doesn't mean it can't be a good habitat. Hummingbirds love my garden. Rats love New York City. The Russians sent a dog into space, and they learned that it wasn't a good habitat. Golf courses can be good habitats for specific species. A lot of eco-friendly courses will tell you about the bird boxes they've installed or the monarch butterflies that they raise, which is pretty good stuff. There was a study that found golf courses can be good habitats for aquatic turtles, and another study that found that golf courses can be a good refuge for native Japanese plants. Some studies found golf courses can improve water quality because the vegetation can filter out pollution. On the other hand, there's also studies that have found that golf courses reduce water quality in streams. Oh, and this study found that golf courses actually have high biodiversity in comparison to an intensively managed agricultural area. You're more biodiverse than a cornfield. Do you want a sticker? I'll get you a sticker. Hold on. Yeah, good job. I'm so proud of you. Golf courses can increase the number of birds in an area, but actually decrease the number of species. More of the same birds is not biodiversity, it's just bird fascism. And there was that time that 700 Atlantic brant geese, over a quarter of the New York State population, were killed after pesticide exposure on a golf course. Other studies have found that fairways and greens act as barriers to several species of insects. Beetles essentially get stuck in isolated rough patches and they can't move and reproduce in the way that they're meant to. And that makes sense. I mean, even the golfers drive from hole to hole. How do you expect a beetle to make the journey? And golfers are at least twice as big as beetles. Habitat fragmentation, breaking it up into aesthetic green patches, can leave the rest of the course open to invasive species, especially if the rest of the course is covered in non-native grasses. When it comes to everyone's favorite topic, the bees, some studies have shown golf courses can increase bee abundance. Others have found that they decrease bee abundance. It's almost like it depends on the golf course. The world is big and full of nuance. Unfortunately, there's more nuance than there are bees. Oh, that was a sad one. Still, if you ever hear a golfer tell you that there's lots of biodiversity on a golf course because they saw insert animal here on Saturday, you have my blessing to slap them and say, that's super cool, but what's the macroinvertebrate makeup of nearby headwaters? Some of my jokes are like just for the ecologists watching. Don't worry about it. Part of the problem is that there is no collective information regarding golf courses as a whole. Each golf course is essentially operating on its own. Management is generally determined by the superintendent, and they aren't measuring their chemical and water usage and reporting that anywhere. I can't say that in 2019 golf courses in the US used X amount of herbicides because that data doesn't exist, or at least I can't find it. What I can say is that in 2019, 16,000 golf courses in the US managed their own land however they saw fit. To be fair, golfers do genuinely believe that golf courses are good for the environment. A slightly outdated but still relevant study from 2002 found that 80% of golfers believed that golf courses were good for the environment compared to just 36% of non-golfers. I feel like there's a word for that. Golf is the large-scale development and manicuring of a natural area. It's never going to be great for the environment in comparison to just leaving the habitat alone. But golf courses can definitely take steps towards reducing their chemical and water usage and creating better habitats for native species. Some golf courses are trying to reduce the amount of managed turf that they have and practice smarter watering practices. A lot of courses plant buffer zones around bodies of water. That's natural, untreated vegetation to minimize chemical runoff. I think an interesting question is, does that matter? It's great that golf courses are trying to be more environmentally friendly. Younger superintendents being hired today are more progressive and conservation focused. We've started to see golf courses priding themselves on their environmentalism. I've spoken with golf course managers, superintendents, and golfers, and I genuinely believe that a lot of them care about the environment. But if they continue to spray and to water and to mow and to build, they're clearly still more industry-driven than deeply eco-passionate. Having 5 green stars is marketable, but having unkempt grass still isn't. Any golf course superintendent will tell you it's essentially impossible to run a golf course without chemical application. There's only one entirely organic course in the country. Actually, let's go look at it. Maybe I could golf there. Oh, it's $5,000 a year to join. It's $5,000. Who can do? Audubon International has the Audubon Cooperative Sanctuary Program for golf courses, which certifies more eco-friendly golf courses. According to their website, they have 729 member courses in the U.S. So if the U.S. has roughly 16,000 golf courses, that's carry the one. 4.5% of golf courses were certified as being less bad. I know what you're thinking. Audubon International, that must be associated with the National Audubon Society. You know, that famous organization that has fought for conservation for over 100 years. Incorrect. Audubon International was created in 1987, and the National Audubon Society sued them for using the Audubon name to give golf courses their certifications. Now, I'm just a silly little TikTok girl, so I would call that riding clout. But someone more informed than me, maybe, I don't know, the CEO of the National Audubon Society might call it deliberate obfuscation. God, why do white men use such big words? My little TikTok brain can't handle it. He could have just said it was misleading. I spoke with Audubon International, and they do encourage golf courses to take steps towards reduction in managed turf, increasing buffers around bodies of water, and not over-applying chemicals. It's not a particularly rigorous program, but it is a decent attempt at getting golf courses to do the bare minimum. I don't think this is an evil greenwashing scheme, but it's definitely still allowing golf courses to use a name associated with the National Audubon Society to market themselves as green. I'd like to argue that green golf courses are just the logical next step in golf's evolution. Golf courses and their members do care about the environment, but they still prioritize an aesthetic of perfection over environmental health. Green golf courses, like any greenwashing, exist to make the consumer feel better about playing golf without addressing the heart of the issue. They're happy to reduce their impacts, but they aren't ready to have the conversation at the center of the issue, which is the inherent wastage that their game demands. They waste space, they waste water, they waste chemicals, and actually addressing those issues would require them to change their game, and they don't want to do that. Moving forward, our biggest focus should be on stopping new golf course developments. There's already 40,000 in the world, they don't need more. We should be especially opposed to golf course developments for tourism purposes. There's an interesting fight happening right now on the island of Barbuda, where a development company basically wants to turn the entire island into a golf course, and the Barbudans, which operate in a communal land system, argue that it's ecocide and that it would restructure the entire demographic of their very small island. For more information on that fight, you can go to their website, globalforwardthinking.org. I'll also link it down below. I understand that there's a lot of people that like golf. Believe me, I get so many messages about how golf is the only thing that makes that teenager happy. And first of all, I suggest finding some other things. But I get it. Being a teenager sucks. I just want to encourage golfers to reflect on their game and ask themselves, do the benefits that I get from this activity outweigh the cost that it has on the environment? And am I entitled to use this manicured land for my own recreation when other people in my town don't have access to green space or fresh vegetables? Now, I'm just a silly little TikTok girl, but I don't think that you are.